All right, so what are these alternative investment strategies? These are the things that financial advisors do not offer you typically, right? These are things outside the norm. However, they've been the norm for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. And yes, you can take advantage of it too. So let me talk about not just what alternative investments there are, but even the ones that I think are the best that have helped me become financially free, as well as many, many of our own clients as well. What are these alternative investments? What are the best strategies that work with this kind of thing? How do we make these strategies work in our own lives? Now, I'll tell you, as a financial advisor, I never knew these things were available. Yes, I knew someone could go like buy a house, right? And buy a rental property in their backyard or whatever, and then go rent it out. That was like the level of depth that I had when it came to investing in alternatives like that, right? To me, that wasn't really alternative. That was like what even normal people did. But of course, as a financial advisor, because really to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. To financial advisors, everything looks like mutual funds, stock market, those kind of things, right? Bonds, stocks, that kind of stuff. That's what I was selling, annuities, you name it. I was offering that kind of option to our clients. Why? Because that's what financial companies pay us to do. So when you realize that you have financial advisors talking to you, just be aware that they're not licensed to give you good financial advice so that you become financially free. Because guess what? They aren't either. They're licensed to sell you the stuff that the financial companies tell them to sell you, right? Which are usually mutual funds, IRAs, 401ks, annuities, things like that. Different types of mutual funds, stocks, bonds, options, maybe options. Most of them can't even do that. And by the way, options, that's a whole nother can of worms you might want to stay away from. That might be considered alternative to some level compared to what most financial advisors offer. But again, that's high risk if you don't know what you're doing. So remember that there's all these options. So when I was a financial advisor, I just thought this was the lane. This is investing. Investing equals stock market. What I realized is after 4 years, and I started to realize that all the advice I was giving, all these financial advisors had decades of experience. All of their clients, none of them were really financially free. They were all worried about running out of money too soon. They were worried about having this slim retirement to live on in the meantime. And of course, even worse is when I sat down with my dad and I looked at his numbers, I said, Dad, even though you're debt-free, you've been stuffing money in your 401k, getting the match, and you've been doing a great job saving your money, yet it's just not enough. You got to keep working longer. That's not what he wanted to hear. He wanted some other options, right? But I didn't know any other options. I even told him, I said, you did everything right from what I teach as a financial advisor. That's what got me on a different path. That's why I started looking for answers and I started getting down the path of real estate investing. Why? Because when I looked at real life, because financial advisors understand that they're really broke, okay? If you were to ask a financial advisor to be fully transparent and honest, say, are you financially free off the investments? And they were to open their books, you would discover, even if they said yes, they're not. Now, I know there's always going to be exceptions to this. There's always that rare few fraction of a percent that would be. Why? Because they made so much money selling you this dream. They made so much sick amounts of cash from your commissions and the money under management. They were able to put away enough money that they finally did accumulate enough to then live on their kind of lifestyle, whatever that might look like, especially if they have a cheap lifestyle. But the truth is, financial advisors can't retire either. And so I looked for people that were in a financially free place, people that were like in real estate investing. Now, I saw people that were like real estate flippers or flipping properties, like buying and selling them and stuff like that. Not like an agent, but like, buying them cheap, renovating them, or just literally buying and then selling later because they bought low, sold high, right? And they would make quick money. But I realized even better was that I could invest with these guys and they would pay me a return and would pay me income. I would see money coming in of at least, say for example, like I give them $100,000, they pay me $1,000 a month on my money that they borrowed from me. And if they didn't pay me, I could take the property away from them and say, that's my property now, thanks, just like the bank does to you if you don't pay your mortgage payment. And so there's a lot of different things I could end up doing that way. And I started to look at this alternative route. Now remember, I didn't want to see it as a financial advisor because I remember even attending a real estate seminar just a year prior to this. This is in 2006, so in 2005 I went to attend a seminar and this real estate investor says, hey, this is better than the stock market because here's why. He's like, if I have a $100,000 property, I put a 20% down payment for $20,000. He's like, what happens if that property appreciates 10%? And I was like, well, duh, you make 10%. Hello, I'm a math genius. I was in top 1% of my high school class. Thank you. And he's like, it's not 10%. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, no, it's not 10% because remember, yeah, the $100,000 property went up 10%, which is $10,000, but you only invested 10,000 or 20,000 bucks. So your 20,000 made 10, it actually quintupled. You made 50% return on that $20,000. And I saw that, I was like, what? Wait, what? No. And then of course, what I was struggling with was not the math. I figured out the math, but it's because it challenged my perspective. I didn't want to see it. And so I was like, well, no. I'm like, well, it's high risk. No, real estate's high risk, and you may not make that much money. But he was 100% right. I've seen it happen. This is why I showed people like literally like through February of 2025. I know you're watching this in March, or February, whatever it is. But in February 2025, when I was looking at the market returns compared to when I first bought one of my properties in Tennessee, I bought that property in May of 2018. The stock market did 125% since May of 2018 through February 2025. But guess what? My property, because of appreciation, because I put $32,000 down payment on it, it's made me over $165,000 between equity gains and cash flow that I've been earning. By the way, just so you know, people say, oh, it's the equity gains. That's how you got ahead. That's why we made over 400% in those almost 7 years. So I understand that if my $32,000 in the stock market became $75,000 over those almost 7 years, which is amazing, by the way, more than the typical return, still, I'd only be living on just over $2,000 a year with that, because that 3% coming out of the $75,000, versus still $8,300 a year, and I get tax benefits. I don't get that with the stock market. Understand that the mainstream stuff has little to no tax advantages, and just so you know, 401ks and IRAs have no tax advantage. They just kick the can down the road, so you have to pay taxes later. And if your financial plan actually does succeed, where you still have good income coming from it, guess what? Are taxes really going to go down in the future? Are you going to bet on that? I wouldn't. The only reason they say your tax should be lower in the future when they tell you about the financial plan is because your plan failed, because you have hardly any money you can pull out of it, and so you're just living on peanuts instead, and so that puts you in a lower tax bracket, not because it was successful. So instead, I go with real estate where I get some tax advantages as well, where I can write off some or all of that income that's coming in. That's huge. That means I get to keep more of my money versus paying it back to Uncle Sam, right? I get to keep more of that money, and it's backed up by real assets. I'm not wondering about, did the market tank today? And does that mean I can't go out and have ice cream, or something like that, right? Or I can't go get new dentures, or whatever it might be that I get in my older age, right? I know some of you guys are older, just like, you're a jerk, I hate you. I don't have dentures at all. I've got 10 crowns, but I have no dentures, dang it, right? So no, I get it. Like, I understand. Like, I'm going to be there soon. I'll be there with you, okay? But you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to worry about stock markets going up and down and all this kind of stuff. You know that cash flow keeps coming in. So what are the strategies that I use and a lot of my clients use as well? Alternative investments, I talk about real estate, but there's various aspects of real estate. It's not just buying the property in my backyard like I thought. No, I could invest my money. Like, I could actually go and lend my money to investors like I mentioned. That was one. Two, I could go buy a property, but I don't have to property manage it. I don't have to be the one that has the tenants, the toilets, and the trash I'm dealing with. I can have a property manager deal with all the headaches. I just get the paychecks. And because of that, I can have a property anywhere in the country, as long as I have a property manager out there. And so I can literally own in better markets. I live in the western half of the United States. Rentals suck out here. But I go out east, the southeast or Midwest, they're way better returning. Lower prices, better returns. I'd rather go out there and buy properties there, but I don't have to worry about it because I'm not physically on location. I don't have to worry about whether they're trashing the place because I have a property manager watching it for me. I could also be an equity investor. I can go in, people, with buying apartment buildings. I can go and buy in, literally you can go into hotels. You can go into different types of vacation properties. You can go into short-term rentals. Yes, you can even go into things like, there's so much. Let me just pick one. You can go into so many things like self-storage rentals. You can even go into things even like Amazon stores, like industrial complexes. It could be office buildings. Don't recommend that right now, but you can go into different stuff like that. Oil and gas investments. I got money in different oil and gas investments that are kicking off some returns. And the cool thing is, as prices go up or they need more drilling, because thanks to the Trump effect, now all of a sudden they actually want to drill more wells. Woohoo! I make more money, right? This is good. I even have raw land. I have a partnership where those guys are buying and selling raw land. We actually become like the bank, because you give these people mortgages with an interest rate. And I put over $500,000 into it to generate over $13,000 a month. That's $170,000 a year. See if your financial advisor could do crap like that. No, they can't, because they're just locked into their little box. They can't do anything else but that. There are so many ways. You can actually go into car wash businesses. There's actually businesses you can go into that are alternative investments. Understand that the biggest hedge funds, where the rich put their money, the hedge funds go and buy in alternative investments. They're not just throwing it in crappy little mutual funds. They don't go and buy just Apple stock. No, they go do this kind of stuff. They know they can go into private equity. They can go do things that should work. They can even buy crypto. And yes, sometimes crypto can make a little sense. No cash flow, but hey, you can grow some money there. Gold and silver, you can do stuff like that. Also alternative investments. Notice all these things I'm mentioning, real estate, gold and silver, not crypto. But a lot of these things are things that have been around for thousands of years. People have been buying and selling these for thousands of years. Stock market, not so much. But that's all financial advisors offer, like that's your only option. You have so much more available to you. And this is what broke me free when I quit being a financial advisor, realizing I have so many more options. And look, I actually get paid money. I actually make money now versus waiting for 40 years to see if it actually worked. And by that point, your financial advisor is already retired or dead, and they don't have any accountability. You can't chew their butts out, so you just have to chew out their children or something like that. And their children are like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Like, you don't have to do that. You can actually make money right now. Now, if you want to see how much passive income is possible in your situation, go to moneyripples.com. Go there. You can actually put your numbers in there, and it'll give you a result, right? It's totally free, but you can actually see what the results are to see how much income you could create in the next 12 months. Not 12,000 years, but 12 months to see what your number actually is. See what that is, and I would love to hear your comments below what that number gave you.